Hey, everybody. It is Thursday. So that means we are here for our live coaching call, which, if you're new to tuning in, we do these calls every Thursday from 12 till roughly 12:30. And we just make ourselves available to you to answer questions about grief recovery. If you're stuck in your grief recovery, or maybe you're not stuck, maybe you're doing fabulous, but you just have a question or something you want to bounce off some coaches, we make ourselves available to do that. And so today we have one of our fabulous coaches, Jeanelle Hunsinger. She hasn't been on these coaching calls yet. She is one of the amazing coaches that work with us at Grief Guru. And she is going to share a little bit about her personal experience and story, which involves recovering from multiple losses in a very short period of time. And so, Janelle, so glad to have you here. Share with the people. Why don't you just tell everybody just your experience with loss and the multiple losses?
All right. Make a long story as short as I possibly can. My first loss was back in 2014. I had lost my mom. She was sick, so it was kind of a relief for her to be out of pain. So that was the first experience. But because it was, in hospice and things like that, we were prepared, and it wasn't as shocking or dramatic as some of the following losses that I had. So that brings us to August 29th of 2020. I had been married 3.5 years to the most fabulous human, love of my life. And on the 29th, I woke up that morning and he did not. So I lost my husband in his sleep. That was shocking and devastating, of course. There was no prior illnesses or anything like that. So it was a very extreme, significant loss for me because I never had to really deal with grief. Shortly after that, in December of the same year, my father-in-law passed away. Then in March of 2021, my mother-in-law passed away. That one was pretty unexpected. She had some health issues, but it was not anything drastic or dire. Then we fast forward to December of 2021, and I have an older brother who had dealt with a lot of alcoholism for most of his life. He had been living in New Mexico on the streets, and we found out on December 10th that they had found him passed away. Then we moved to February 5th, my youngest brother, who also had dealt with a lot of drug addiction, had taken his own life. So those are pretty extreme, significant, unexpected losses that we were not prepared for.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk a little bit about that. And I see a few people have tuned in. Hey, if you're here, drop a comment, say hello, let us know where you're tuning in from. And as you're listening, if you have a question or comment, just drop it in the comments and we'll be happy to respond. But Janelle, let's talk a little bit about, because you had two back-to-back so close with both of your brothers and kind of mental health addiction issues. Just what was that like in terms of your family, in terms of, your dad recovering and the family dynamic? Can you speak to that?
I think like with my oldest brother, since he had been a homeless alcoholic on the streets, we knew it would eventually be coming, but you never are fully prepared for that day. So when he got the call, it was pretty shocking. We always tried to reach out for decades. I'd let him live with me many times over the years, but it still hits differently. And as a brother as well, I mean, he hadn't been there for the majority of my life. We had times where I did let him come stay with me, but our relationship over the last few years was not regular. We didn't talk all the time and things like that. So it's still that final confirmation that he is gone. That's definitely shocking. My dad, he dealt with that one pretty well. My dad's pretty amazing. In our family, it's kind of get up and get going, which can be a great thing or a harder thing to deal with. And then my youngest brother, that was probably the biggest shock because he was brilliant, 10 years younger than me, had always been very, very, very smart, very spiritual person, but all the drug use that he had done had ended up messing with his mind a little bit. And he ended up tormented and kind of not diagnosed schizophrenic, but hearing voices and things. So I guess he couldn't take it anymore. He believed that there were things coming against the family, FBI, and things like that. So his suicide was to kind of help the family not have to deal with those things that weren't real. So that was also a mixed deal because he was 45, 44 at the time, young, lots of hope, very talented. It was very unexpected. We really thought he'd eventually come out of the addiction. He always tried really hard and he just couldn't beat it. So when he actually did that and took his life, that was very shocking. That hit the family a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Because that's a definite different kind of loss.
Yeah, I think, and first of all, I want to say hi. A couple people are chiming in. So, hey, Sandra in Canada, and we have someone tuning in from Bakersfield, California, someone else in Florida. So, hello, hello. If any of you guys have questions or something you would like for us to cover, this time is absolutely for you. So, feel free to drop a comment and we will just talk about whatever is on your plate. But Jeanelle is a wealth of wisdom because she's experienced a lot of different types of losses and she's recovered from them all, which is amazing and part of what she helps folks to do when she works with people at Grief Guru. And what I was going to say, Janelle, as you were talking about, both the loss to addiction and then, mental health and suicide, it's sort of this mixed bag because you've been trying to help them for so long and you've seen them struggle and you've seen them be in pain. And a lot of times we have to put up boundaries to protect ourselves. And so then when they pass away, the piece of hope of them getting better and being quote unquote normal or stable goes away. But also, the fact that they're in pain and tormented goes away, and the struggle and stress of having a family member that's struggling with severe addiction or mental health, it's just, it gets all jumbled up in there, and it can be a really confusing time for folks. I mean, did you wrestle with any of that, maybe more when they were alive or after they passed?
There was definite frustration when they were alive with all the back and forth of trying to get well and not. You always feel helpless, like you can't help them. Things don't make sense when there's strong family support. These brothers had more support, I think, than a lot of people get, and still would end up back in that trap. So that was definitely a little bit harder. I think the way that I got through it is kind of, I'm not trying to do a promo for our program, so I want people to know that. But in the program that we use, we get to a point where we can choose what to hold on to, excuse me, with those losses. And for me, I could focus on the guilt. I could have tried harder with my brother. I didn't talk to my youngest brother for a few months before he ended up committing suicide. So there's that potential for guilt. Like I should have maybe reached out more. And done more, but I had done everything over 40 years that I could. So I have to decide, am I going to choose to sit and ruminate over the guilt and let that just destroy me, or look at the reality of the situation, which is one of our biggest sayings, I think, that we do in the program is, did you do everything you could with the knowledge that you had at the time? And absolutely believe that for everybody that deals with any type of loss, regardless of suicide or a sudden loss, the guilt is always the first thing that kicks in. And I think if we can just focus on that fact that we did everything we could with the knowledge that we had, and that was the best that we could, and we have to focus on that and then let the rest go. So I choose to look at them being out of pain, out of torment. They're finally released from all those demons, and now they are at peace. And I know that. So I have to hold on to that instead of focusing on all the negative stuff. And that is a choice that we make.
Yeah, it is a choice and a discipline, right? Because you can choose like, oh, I'm going to focus on the positive stuff. And then the next day there, those thoughts are back again, wanting to hold you captive. So I just want to talk about this a little bit more because it's so powerful and it's so true that if you're stuck on the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, that is literally hindering your healing. That is blocking the ability to heal and move forward in a meaningful way and in a healthy and positive way. And there, unfortunately, a lot of people stay stuck in that loop for months or even years. They just can't stop thinking about what they should have done or what they could have done or if things would have been different. And it isn't just enough to have awareness that those thoughts aren't good. It's the practice, the actual practice of, okay, well, if I'm not going to think that, then what am I going to think? You have to replace the bad thing with a good thing, the bad thought with a good thought. And then you have to repeat the good thought until it replaces the bad thought. So some of it sounds so simple, but it's not, right? Like, it's kind of like weight loss. Like, it's simple. Intellectually, we know to lose weight, you have to expend more calories than you eat. That sounds simple, but doing it is a whole nother animal. And that's kind of, with our stuff, it's not complex or complicated. It's just not easy to do,
Mhm.
and it's not what most people do. Most of us don't just naturally do this. That's why people get stuck for a long time, because we don't naturally do this, right?
Mhm.
What's the biggest thing, as you've been, working with people and encountering a lot of people who have experienced loss? What's the biggest mistake you see people making, and maybe that they don't even realize they're making it?
I think the biggest thing is that by moving forward, you're leaving behind the person that you lost, or by
Oh, that
letting
they think
go.
that they believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's I have to be sad all the time in order to have him or her be known or be remembered. That's the biggest one. And that's like some of my favorite breakthroughs with the clients that I'm working with, is that no matter what you do, no matter what you say, they're still there. They're a huge part of you. So if you
Yeah.
decide that day you're going to be happy, it doesn't mean that they're gone. They're still your number one. They're still the person that you love. That one I think is the biggest trap, is by thinking that having a day of joy or feeling healthy or feeling healed means you're letting go. You're never letting go, period. You're never going to forget them no matter what.
Right.
That to me
Yeah.
seems to be the biggest.
I love that. And yeah, I've heard people like even get offended at the idea of like moving forward or moving on, because even the phrase moving on, like they feel like it
Mhm.
means that they're leaving their person behind, or they're going to somehow live as if they never existed or it never happened. But that is not true. And actually, somebody's just
Mhm.
chiming in. They're saying, I guess for me, every time I start to feel better, I feel guilty for it. That's so common. And that's a
Mhm.
misconception and a lie. So the lie, if you're feeling guilty every time you feel better, the lie underneath that is that if I feel happy, it means I didn't love my person, or if I feel happy, it means I'm going to forget my person, and that is not true. But that's what we work with people to help figure out and decide what the truth is for you. But um, getting better is absolutely what your loved one would want for you and what you should want for you, because they died and you still have a whole life left to live. And I'm guessing no matter who you are, where you are, you have people connected to you that love
Mhm.
you and want you to be healthy and whole and happy. And sometimes, though, it just takes repetition, right? Like we have to know that it's okay for us to move forward, and then to practically know what that looks like. So Goose Farm 99, that's the name of this person who is saying they're feeling guilty. If you have any other thoughts or specific questions about that, drop another comment below. But Janelle, what do you have to say about that? That every time they start to feel better, they're feeling guilty.
I think something that we teach as well, which you came up with, which I think is brilliant and I use all the time, is there's two buckets. There's a what's helping me bucket and what's hurting me bucket as far as recovery. And what good is feeling guilty doing for you? Is that helping you in any way, shape, or form? We're all stuck here. Our people have gone and it stinks. We're here. And there's really not too much we can do about it outside of the negative worst thing, of course. So most of us are going to hang in there because we don't really have a choice. So now you have to pick, how are you going to spend the rest of your days? Do you want to feel horrible every day? Do you want to feel guilty? There's nothing to feel guilty about. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. So you have to let that go and you have to move forward. Your rest of your days, you literally do have a choice. How do you want to feel? Because they're not wanting, like you said before, us to sit and feel horrible every single day. That's not serving them. And I think one of
Yeah.
the best steps in our stuff is the end is finding that purpose for your pain. And that's when
Yeah.
everything begins to shift, because then you can do something regardless, big or small, and then you can start seeing hope again. And then that guilt, you have to let it go. My dad's Jewish. He's a Jewish Christian, but he raised us our whole life that guilt is a dance and you can choose to dance with it or not. It's your choice to dance. And I hold
I
on
love
to
it.
that, actually. As silly as it sounds, it is true. So it's your choice to focus on the guilt or let it go. And if you let the guilt go, you're not letting your person go, but you're not doing any good to yourself or your recovery by holding it. You're just not. There's nothing good
I
that
think
comes.
one thing that helps people make this shift is to learn how to stay connected to their loved ones emotionally through positive experiences. It's like,
Yes.
because it's the only way we've been taught, and our culture says when you're crying and when you're sad, you're connected to your loved one. But I'm connected to my loved ones through like inside jokes and, silly memories and songs. And I say this all the time, but I'm going to pull them out. I'm wearing Quentin's shoes. I wear them like every day. And it's a simple little thing, but like there are an infinite amount of possibilities for those kinds of things that you can do, that you can feel close to your loved one. You can feel connected to your loved one through just everyday living and kind of neutral activities, all the way to like fun, silly, goofy activities, all the way to like meaningful, like tattoo connection and whatever. Like there's so many ways that you can do. And I think people they're so stuck on the sad that they never open their mind to the positive, fun ways that they can be connected to their loved one and like explore some of those things. Like one lady that I worked with, it was so beautiful. Every year for Christmas, she decided her daughter loves hearts. And so she's going to buy a new heart ornament every year. And so it's going to be part of her little tradition to have her daughter represented on their Christmas tree. And she looks forward to picking out a new one every year. Like it's going to be one little tradition that she just does for her daughter and in their family. And you can do stuff like that all of the time. Like tell me something. So tell me something either from your husband or your brothers, like what's something you do to stay connected and carry on their legacy in your life?
I think one big thing is kind of like what you were saying with the Christmas thing is anniversaries and birthdays are always the hardest. And I think counting into those days, if you're dreading the date and all you're doing is focusing on how horrible it's going to be, the 1 year mark's coming up, the 1 year mark, that can definitely keep you stuck. But I've learned to switch my thinking into making a plan for those types of things. So the 2 years coming up, the end of August, so I'm going to plan a trip. I don't know where, but I'm going to spend the next 4 to 6 weeks coming up with a really cool trip that he and I wanted to go to or enjoyed or a favorite place. And I'll probably hit a road trip and I'm going to play all our music the whole drive, stop along the way. I'm going to bring some ashes. He's all over the whole country at this point. And he's literally, I hope I don't get arrested for this, but I got his ashes on the 20-yard line of Lambert Field in Wisconsin because we were Packers fans. I've got him at our favorite tree in New Orleans. I've got him in the Lake Michigan in Chicago. So it's just my little fun thing to do. So I think when those days are coming up, that's how I kind of keep him with me in the planning of it during that first month or 2 months of planning or 6 months of planning the trip. He's with me every day. I'm like, hey, what should we do? Where would be a fun place? And then it kind of makes a big shift too. So that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yeah. I know anniversaries is a tricky one because I've heard a lot of people anniversaries are hard. And I think you're 100% right. Like we can make them harder than they actually are, right? By making it this big thing in our head, this big production and like bracing for the anniversary, you can make it heavier than what it actually is. For one, I just passed the 4-year anniversary of losing Quentin last week. And at the 3-year mark, I just made the intentional choice. Like, this is not going to be a day for me anymore. Like July 8th is not going to be a day that I choose to like commemorate or make a big thing. Like, I'm just going to have it be, and that's my choice. Right. But because I also know some people who do really beautiful things on the anniversary of passing. And for them, it's a very sentimental, sweet time. And like family will get together and share stories and they'll kind of use it as a benchmark for remembering on purpose, so it can be, I just wish we could disconnect the idea that like remembering needs to be sad, that like memorial things need to be these heavy, hard things. Like they can be light, they can be silly, they can be sentimental and actually healing and connection, there's nothing I love more than sitting. I mean, what parent doesn't love to talk about their kids, right? Like alive or dead, there's nothing more that I like to sit around and tell stories about my kids or talk about my kids. I think every parent does. So just because Quentin's not here physically doesn't mean that I can't talk about him and I don't enjoy talking about him, Talk to me a little bit. And for the folks that are tuning in, if you have a question, if you're stuck in your grief recovery and you just want some insight or tips, or if you're struggling with something, drop a comment below. We will be happy to speak to it during this time together. But, and now I forgot where I was going with my train of thought. I was going to say, what was I going to say? I don't know.
If I could maybe throw one more thing in on the count on the anniversaries, if you're new in your grief, there's something that we do, which is bizarre, but every single grieving person does, is we count. We count. It's been 30 days, it's been 60 days. Now it's been 6 months. Maybe give yourself what I did. I'm not going to tell you all what to do, but I gave myself a rule. At the 1 year, I'm not counting the months anymore. I'm done. It's not serving me. It's 9 months now. Now it's 11 months. Then it's 12 months. Now it's 13. So for me, what I did is at the 1 year mark, I made a decision. I'm not counting the months anymore. It's not helping me. It's just, I dread the days up to that exact August 29th date. So I let go of that. And then I went to the year. So I'm just doing the 1 year thing now. And that's released a lot of stress because there's also the birthdays in between. So if you find yourself early in your grief and you're counting every single 30 days, 60 days, maybe make a pact with yourself at the 1 year mark or sooner if you're able to. You're not going to count every single month because they're with you no matter what. So why are you torturing yourself? Maybe just go for the big ones, their birthday or the 1 year and then the 2, and then you will let go like you did.
I think to me, it's just like when you have a baby or when you get married. When you get married or you have a baby, you count the days and then the weeks and then the months. And then, like you said, once you tip over to years, then you start counting the years. And so that tends to be kind of the natural progression of it, Yeah, it's super weird. It's just, and exactly like when you have a baby, it feels like forever ago and it feels like yesterday at the same time. Like time is so deceptive and elusive as far as that goes. I know we could all just close our eyes and go right back to the moment when it happened right now. And at the same time, for me personally, it feels like forever since I spoke to Quentin and saw him and hugged him. Like that feels like a lifetime ago. And I think part of it is because we grow and change so much. Loss does change everything. Like that's one of the rare sayings that I agree with. There's all these sayings out there about grief and loss, and one of them is that it changes everything. And I agree with that. Everything changes. There's not anything that stays the same. But the beautiful part about that is we are an author of the change. We get to decide how that change affects us and how we change. And so it's certainly a lot of it is not good, but it's not all bad, right? Like we can lean into the positive changes and we can grow into it and actually design for ourselves a richer, more deep, fulfilling, meaningful life on the other side of it. But that's easier said than done. And nobody does that just, in a few weeks or even a few months. It takes a lot of hard work.
Ooh. That's funny. When you said lean in, that was something I heard in the first year that drove me nuts. Lean into the pain. Just lean into the pain. And there's times when you need to, but I like what you just said. Let's lean into the positive stuff. You're the one living with this grief. Like nobody knows your grief. Every kind of loss is different. It doesn't matter if you lost a son. I'm not going to get it. I wouldn't get it if I had a son that I lost. So our own pain that we feel as grievers is individual, like you said. And if you can get to the point where you're leaning into the positive, it's not going to take anything away from the loss. It's just giving you a chance at life again. And if we're stuck in it, we may as well try to find a way to be stuck in it in a happier, more positive way.
Yeah. And I know it's maybe cliche or it can seem offensive to people who are really like burdened with sorrow, but I actually see it as a bit of a treasure hunt. Like there's all these things that you can discover about yourself and discover about life and your life in general. And there's all these things waiting for you that you can do on the other side of it. And so if you'll just have this kind of childlike wonder or adventure spirit, like what are the things that you could do to make an impact in your loved one's honor? The creative ideas that I see people, we just did a retreat last weekend, and one of the moms that came is an amazingly talented artist. And like she reconnected with this love of painting and whatever. And so now she's thinking about how she can connect her gift for painting and her daughter that passed away and do something that honors her daughter and helps people who are grieving. And like, how cool is that? How exciting to be able to tap into these things that you never thought you would do or opportunities that you never thought you'd have and be able to do something that connects you and connects the person that passed away and helps make the world a better place. I really think we're all designed to make an impact. Like God designed us to make a difference. We're not just supposed to take up space. And when you go through loss, it helps you get in touch and in tune with that, I think, a lot more. You know, most people who are doing pretty significant things in the world, it comes out of a place of trauma. You know, it's on the other side of trauma. Most amazing inventions and big companies and nonprofits, like if you read the stories of their founders, it's almost always birthed in trauma. So we shouldn't run from the trauma, but we should instead look for, exactly like you said, the good in it, or the good that can come out of it. Like, one of the little life hacks that I've learned is, if you're ever discontent with your situation in life right now, the quickest way to remedy that is to shift your eyes to the future and what it could become. Don't focus on what it is right now. Focus on what it could become. So, you know, if your emotions are crazy and you're just drowning in grief, like, don't focus on your state right now. Try to cast your eyes on what your future could become. Try to think about 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, and catch a vision for things being better and things being hopeful and all that kind of stuff. Because if you don't have a vision for the future, that's what just keeps you on the little gerbil wheel, right? Like, just going through the motions and staying stuck in the nonsense and staying stuck in the present moment. So I don't know, that's been hugely helpful for me to not get burdened or weighed down with things as they are.
Yeah.
Hey to the new people that are tuning in. If you're just tuning in, this is the tail end of our weekly coaching calls. So myself and our other coaches here at Grief Guru come on every Thursday at noon Central Time to just chat about our own stories, our own experiences. We do a little bit of teaching based on our grief relief framework that we teach folks, but mostly we just make ourselves and this time available for questions and comments from you if you're struggling with grief or you have something. Hey there, Jody is tuning in from, I don't even know. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's her last name, from North Carolina. Hey, Jody, in North Carolina. How are you? Jody, is there anything specific that you're struggling with in terms of grief recovery, or maybe a question that you have? We would be happy to answer it for you while we were here. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, Janelle, why don't you just share real quickly about the group that you're going to be starting in just a couple weeks, right?
Yep. We are going to have a widows group. It'll be on Monday, the 25th at 8 p.m. Central Time. And that should be I'm finding the groups are wonderful because you're getting different perspectives. And I love that we have groups that are different kind of losses, and then certain groups that are set up for specific. Because I think the biggest thing that comes from that, especially I'll speak on widows, is we're lonely. we are, whether there's kids at home or not. Having a spouse removed from our life it affects everything 24 hours a day, from waking up, going to the store, taking out the trash, cooking anymore, things like that. And then we don't have our person that's always there rooting us on. So I think as widows, we're craving that relationship, and being with other widows isn't going to be that magic fix, but being with others that really understand that absence in our life and the loneliness, and, we'll address all of those things. I'm a huge fan of this curriculum. This isn't a support group. I'm just going to put it out. This is not your typical support group where we all just sit and cry together and moan together and be in dread together. That's something you can go get anywhere outside. Our stuff is for people that are sick of feeling the way they're feeling, that want a better life, that want some joy returned, want to know how to deal with the guilt. And this 10 weeks is going to give you actual plans and tools and tips and support and empathy and love from me as a coach and the others in the group that are going to give us permission to have a life again, give us permission to feel what we feel, give us permission to move forward. And it's so bizarre. I was going to bring that up earlier. It's like, I needed someone to say, it's okay that you feel good. You can actually get up and you can go do things, and it's absolutely okay. And I love that. Sometimes you need that from somebody else, but I'm excited. I want to have more widow friends. I'm not trying to segregate us, but there's just something about it that we get. So I'm hoping we have lots of widows that are willing to take on this course. Again, this isn't just a typical grief support group. I am not against those. I do have a problem with them because grief support groups, to me, you just sit and feeling defeated. This is an actual course that you are going to be taking from someone that has taken the course and studied the course and lives the course. And we're going to give you, if you are ready to not feel like this anymore, the tips and tools and the plans to prepare for all the things that come with it. I'm currently counseling, coaching somebody, and just seeing in 7 weeks, I was like, I'm not going to cry during this call. Here we go. That was my one rule getting on here. I'm like, I'm not going to get emotional. But this woman, the steps that she has made and the work that she has done, her life is changing before me. And she just lost her husband in February. And she's a completely different person just in week 7. But she's doing the work and she's showing up and her life is changing. And that's what gives me hope and gives me my purpose through all of my losses, is watching somebody get their life back and let go of guilt and take back the world for them. So that's my excitement of having these groups, and the one that's starting in a couple weeks. I cannot wait. I love bonding with these people. We're going to be friends for life, and I get to see them get well. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So we've had people chiming in. So first of all, if you're watching this either live or on the replay and you are a widow and you'd be interested in information about the group, drop a comment below or tag, or you can email actually either Janelle or myself, Janelle@thegriefguru.com or Kelly@thegriefguru.com. And we would be happy to get you information on that 10-week group. We had someone asking if there's going to be a suicide survivors group. And yes, absolutely. So if you're not very familiar, we have a lot of different coaches on our team with different loss experiences. And we do have a couple of coaches that are familiar with suicide loss. I lost my mom to suicide. Jeanelle's familiar with suicide loss. And so we will have a suicide specific group, probably either in August or September. Jeanelle's group is the next one that's coming up. And then I'll be leading a group for parents who've lost kids to addiction or overdose. So that's going to be starting in early August. But yeah, this group course that you take 10 weeks and you just link arms with other people and you have a coach to show you the way. It's astounding. It's so amazing for us as coaches to get a front row seat to people's transformation, because it's so powerful. So if you're at all watching this, just think about, where do you want to be in roughly 10 weeks from now? In 3 months from now, where do you want to be? And let me just tell you that feeling healthy and healed and whole, and just with a much brighter outlook on life, and with a repertoire of tools for when grief comes, is totally available and possible. And we're not sitting here saying that grief is never going to come, or you're never going to have a tough day, or it's never going to be hard, but it's going to be drastically minimized and reduced compared to what you're currently in. And even when it comes, you are going to have a plethora of tools and resources to just deal with it so much more efficiently. I think I can confidently say, like, no more are the days of grief taking you captive and grief having its way with you. You are the master of your ship, and you have the ability to decide how much room it's given in your life. And that, for me, is one of the things I love the most about helping our clients do, because you can feel so helpless. You can feel like grief is just kind of having its way with you, and you're just along for the ride, and you're just waiting for it to be over, and you're hoping you survive, like, it's a very helpless point of view, but it doesn't have to be that way. But you have to be intentional and learn the skills to change it from being reactive to proactive. So I love that. Okay, we are over our time, but I do, there's 4 people on right now. So if any of you 4 have a specific question, we would be happy to answer it for you. Let's see, there's a couple other comments. I keep hearing, give yourself lots of grace. Don't even know what that means, and why does that help? So, and this was coming from the same gentleman that said he was, I think it's a he, I don't know actually, that is feeling guilty about feeling better. So yeah, giving yourself grace. I use this analogy a lot too, and I'm just going to bring it up again. Experiencing loss is like going through a traumatic car accident or having major surgery. You can't just expect that you're going to just jump back into life as if it never happened. There's a season of healing. There's a season of recovery. And if you had major surgery, you would give yourself grace, meaning you would give yourself patience and you would not expect a lot from yourself. And you need to have the same mindset when it comes to grief recovery. Be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself, be flexible with yourself. And, those are some of the gifts that came out of this for me. I wasn't very gentle or kind with myself before this happened. And I learned how to do that because I had to, right? I learned about my capacity and what my limits were and how to, protect my limits. So hopefully that helps. Give yourself lots of grace. I think just means just be good to yourself, Do you have a thought on that, Janelle?
I do. I think when you're new in your grief, you're going to have days where you are unable to move, or you're going to have days where you feel good, or you're going to have days where you feel guilty. When you're going through, and this is when I reached out to Kelly, actually, the very first time, is I felt like I was going crazy because I'd have a good day, then a bad day, and then I would judge myself. I judge myself on how I'm grieving. I judge myself on being too sad. I judge myself on having a good day. I judge myself on not sharing enough to help others. Things like, I think where the grace for me, where your question hits, is we get so judgmental of ourselves and our feelings every day because they're so crazy at the beginning of grief. We're judging each day's emotions. So I think a phrase that I use, I'm giving myself a free pass for a year. That drives my daughter crazy. It's like, you should have a free pass your whole life. But I gave myself that first year. I have a free pass to feel what I want to feel, to kind of act how I want to act within reason, not being crazy mean or anything like that. But I gave myself the grace to feel whatever I was feeling at those times and not judge myself. And I think by giving yourself permission to feel what you feel in the beginning, which does make you feel crazy, don't judge yourself on any of it. Let it go. This is how I feel today. I'm going to allow myself a certain amount of time to feel this way. Those are deeper into our steps that we do. But just don't judge yourself on everything you feel or think or act. Give yourself the grace there. So you're not beating yourself up every day on every new emotion that's popping up during that first year, which is crazy making. I hope that helps.
No, I love that. And it's messy. This is what, recovering from grief and actually doing the work to recover from it, not stuffing it, ignoring it, not wallowing in it, but facing it and doing the hard work to get over it is messy, and it's hard, and it just doesn't happen. Like, you don't just figure it out one day and you're just good. You're going to screw up and you're going to fall down and sometimes too, we've known with working in groups, sometimes it feels like you're going backwards, but you're actually making progress. For example, if you've been just keeping yourself busy and distracting, and you actually slow down and spend an afternoon crying because you're actually getting in touch with the feeling, that may feel like a step backwards, but that is actually a step forwards. And so be careful not to think you need to have some linear path and have these benchmarks of progress and stuff, because healing and progress looks different for different people at different stages in their grief recovery. So if you find yourself crying every day for 3 weeks, then we want to talk about what do we need to do, because you don't want to stay in that place. But it's not linear, it's not logical. It's this evolution, for lack of a better word. It's this growth and development, becoming more in touch and in tune with where you're at and what you need in order to keep moving forward, and then taking the intentional steps to keep moving forward. That's what it looks like. So I'm so thankful for the handful of you that hopped on today. I hope this was encouraging to you. I hope you got some little nuggets or several little nuggets out of it. And I know Janelle and I just want to say, we're so proud of you for seeking out solutions, for not just settling for the status quo, not just believing what the world would say, which is you can never get over it and you're always going to be sad. I applaud and salute you for seeking out the recovery tools that are going to work for you. And whether you ever work with us or not, I want to encourage you to keep doing that, because trauma is not your fault, but healing is your responsibility. And you alone know the tools that are going to work for you. And you alone are going to reap the benefit from finding and utilizing those tools. So well done for showing up today. We are here every Thursday. I think next week we're going to have a different coach with us. So come back next Thursday. If you have questions, let others know about this resource for people. We have a heart to help anybody who's struggling with grief experience healing and victory, and know that it's possible, and learn how to walk in it. So I think that's it. Anything else, Janelle? Any closing comments?
The group is starting soon, so if you feel that you're ready to attack this thing and get well and find peace and joy again, I think registration, you're closing on the 18th.
Monday is the deadline. Next Monday is
Okay.
the deadline. So yeah.
I would love to have you if you would like to join us and really see a huge difference. So looking forward to it.
All right, guys, we will see ya.